ladies, thanks for joining me for another Bible study here. So today's going to be a little different. We're going to shift gears and I'm going to share with you a list that I made for myself of lessons that I've learned during this COVID-19 pandemic. So I would encourage you to, at some point, maybe make a list and see what yours looks like of lessons that you've learned during the pandemic. And specifically, it's spiritual lessons. So let's jump right in. So the first one that I learned is that only God knows what's really going on and only God knows the truth. And for a while that really frustrated me because I wanted to know about this virus. I wanted to know, was the media being up front with us, or were they feeding us what they wanted us to know? I wanted to know, when was it going to be over? I wanted to know how serious it was. Was it really something to be feared? And then it dawned on me, we're talking about man here and man's wisdom. Man doesn't know. Man doesn't really know everything about COVID-19, but God does. God knows everything about it. And it made me think of this verse. It's found in Isaiah 46, verses 9 and 10. So that's Isaiah 46, 9 and 10. For I'm God, and there is no other. I'm God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, things not yet done. So the part that really struck with me is he declares the end from the beginning. So that means God knows how something's going to end even before it begins. So God is the one that knows everything about the coronavirus. He knew when it was going to start. He knows when it's going to end. He knows how many people are going to die from it. He knows the correct vaccine to take care of it. So I don't need to worry myself with all the details. Now, that's not to say that I should stick my head in the sand and just be in total denial. But on the other hand, I don't have to know everything. It's going to be okay. I can trust God. And that, and also I need to say that the next point is that we live in a fallen world. God did not create it and release it on the world, I don't believe. I think it's just a result of us living in a fallen world. So that's number 2. And I'm going to go to Revelation chapter 21, verse 4 for that point. So a lot of times we use this verse to talk about heaven and what heaven's going to be like, which is good, and this is a good verse to go to talk about heaven. But we're going to think about the flip side of heaven and what it's like still here on earth. So Revelation chapter 21, verse 4. He shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. So that gives us a snapshot of what heaven's going to be like. But like I said, when we flip it, we can see that here on earth, that there's going to be tears, there's going to be death, there's going to be mourning, there's going to be crying, there's going to be pain. That's just part of living in a fallen world. So it was just, COVID was a reminder that we do live in a fallen world, and that just disease and mutations and viruses and cancer and all that are just part of life. And that's what gives us the hope of heaven, because it's not going to have any of those things in it. And the next point is that God is in control and God's powerful. And that kind of ties back into the first point, that God knows everything there is to know about COVID. But since he is powerful and since he is in control, he can help us navigate through this. Now, I've been untouched by it. I haven't gotten sick. Nobody I've known has gotten sick. I've been fairly untouched financially, but still, this is a good reminder that God can help us through difficult things. So we're going to go to Joshua chapter 1 for this point. And the context here is the children of Israel are on the border of Canaan. They're getting ready to go in and start the battles to take control of the land. So this is a people that were slaves in Egypt. They've been nomads for the past 40 years. It's second generation of the people that saw the wonders in Egypt. They've never built a house. They've never planted a garden. They've never probably fashioned weapons for war. They've never been in an army. But here they are getting ready to go and take over this nation. So this is the instructions that God gives Joshua in chapter 1, verse 9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So again, it's one of those wherever verses. So whatever's going on, wherever you go, the command is to not be afraid, not to be dismayed. Let's see, let me get it right. Yeah, not to be afraid, don't be dismayed, but instead be strong and courageous. So whatever we're dealing with, in this case, I'm kind of thinking about Corona, but like I said, it hasn't really touched me. But still, the thought is, whatever's going on, be strong, be courageous, don't be afraid, and don't be dismayed. Okay, the next one was probably my biggest lesson that I learned, and that was that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Because I'm a planner, I love to even do long range plans, but I've learned that that can change in an instant. So I'm going to go to James 4 for that text. So James 4, starting in verse 13. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. So that's the big lesson. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, so here's what you should do. If the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. So the sin wasn't in planning to go to the city and to work and to make profit. There's no sin in planning, but the sin comes in when you don't say if the Lord wills. So I was maybe not boasting with my mouth, but in my planning I was boasting, because in my mind I thought this was going to happen. Just because I planned it and wrote it down, it was going to happen. And I would pray and I would ask God to bless it, but never once did I pray if it's your will, because it never occurred to me that things would suddenly end, things that I was planning would not be able to happen. The next big one was the thought of give us this day our daily bread. And that comes from Matthew 6 and the model prayer. And I had never experienced not being able to just go and get daily needs. For example, toilet paper. I wasn't really paying attention to the news, and I'm not a hoarder. I don't, go and stockpile stuff. So suddenly there was a toilet paper shortage, and we didn't have toilet paper. And that was for some other just staples in the home too, as far as food. So it was really a wake-up call to know what it's like to live day to day. Now, granted, we had enough toilet paper to last us a day and enough food to last us a day, but still it was eye-opening to know and to have faith that we were going to be able to find toilet paper or find food when the shelves were being wiped out. So that was another big lesson that I learned, is to trust God for daily substances day by day. Okay, so the next one, the next thing that I've thought about, a lesson that I've learned, comes from Proverbs 31. And that's talking about the woman, the godly woman. And there's lots of attributes given, but in verse, it's verse 21. She's not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. And my Bible had a little footnote there for the scarlet double thickness. So whatever it was, whatever type of clothing it was going to protect her family from the snow. So we're not talking about snow here. I'm thinking more on terms of, and I'm not even really thinking about COVID, but just how things can change rather quickly. Back then they didn't have 7-day forecast and Doppler, so snow may come upon you suddenly, but you were prepared. You had the right kind of clothing. So what we've talked about earlier, we don't know what tomorrow holds, and God knows what's going to happen, but man doesn't. But still, we can be prepared, and I think it shows us as women that we can do our part to maybe prepare our households for some things that we don't know is going to happen. So for example, if society as we know ended, or if the supply chain broke down, and I'm not talking about hoarding here, but just being prepared, maybe starting a small stockpile of staples, dried beans, canned meats, toilet paper, basic medicine, things like that, because we don't know what's ahead. So we can take precautions and get our family prepared, because it starts out as she's not afraid. So we shouldn't, as women, we shouldn't be afraid of a stock market crash, or like I said, the supply chain breaking down, because we can take steps to have our family prepared if that happens. And The next one is people are dying every day. Now, I'm not here to debate, is COVID the reason that for their death, or is it pneumonia or the flu? That's not the point. The point is that thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are dying every day. And since this has started, that's the point. And it makes me realize that at some point I'm gonna die. At some point, people around me are gonna die, whether it's from COVID or just from something else. And that's a sobering thought. I guess it made me more aware of death. And I'm gonna go to Hebrews chapter 9 for this point. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27. And just as it is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes the judgment. So you die once, and then the judgment. People are dying all around us. We're going to die one day. Are we making the plans for ourselves, for our departure from this earth? Are we making plans for the departure of our family, people that we're in contact every day? And mainly I'm talking about spiritual preparation. Am I prepared to step into eternity? Or the people around me, have I done my job telling them, explaining to them that once you die, that's it, and then eternity awaits you? Now, granted, all these hundreds of thousands of people that have died here since January, not that you have a direct responsibility to teach all them, but still, you've got this circle of people right around you that you could be making sure they understand that eternity awaits after death. The next two I'm going to group together. I'm never going to take assembling for granted, because I did. I always thought that was going to be my right, my privilege to assemble with the Christians every Sunday, and suddenly that was taken from me, and it was worship at home. I'm not going to take fellowship for granted. I just always look forward to going and being with my brothers and sisters in Christ, and suddenly, again, that was taken from me. I was, we Zoom some, but that's not the same. It's not the same as face to face. Okay, my last point was, at some point in my life and at some point in your life, it's going to be a last moment. And COVID made me think of that, especially with teachers, because you had your class and that was it. At the end of the day, that was the last time that you were going to be with those children, whether you were a public school teacher or a Bible class teacher. That was the last time. And we didn't know it. We didn't know that was the last time. So it made me think about other last moments. Last moments for me, the last time I crawl in my bed to go to sleep, the last time I kissed my spouse, the last time I hugged my mom. We're all going to have these last moments. So again, are we prepared for those last moments? And mainly I'm talking spiritually. Are we spiritually prepared for last moments? So I hope you've enjoyed these. I hope you take the time to sit down and make your own list of things that you've learned during the pandemic, whether you've been touched directly or indirectly, or not touched at all. Just sit down and think about some things that you have learned. So I hope it's been beneficial, and check back next week for another study, and hopefully next week it'll be a little more meaty and we'll look at a certain passage of scripture. Have a great week.